introducing yourself? Like, say, like...
Okay. Do you want me to hold the phone, or...?
Oh, no, you can just have it right here.
All right. So just introduce myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like your name, age, profession.
All right. My name is Paul Robinson. I'm 29 years old.
Oh, watch out.
Oh. Hey, bud.
Hey, buddy.
Get out of here. All right, that'll be funny.
All right, sorry. We just got
all right,
by
I'll
a
start
dog.
again. So my name is Paul Robinson. I'm 29 years old. I'm originally from New Jersey, but I live out here in Colorado now, and I'm a professional rock climber.
All right, and I'm Ryan Turner, and I'll be interviewing Paul today. All right, so tell me about how you first got introduced to climbing.
All right. So when I was like 10 or 11 years old, I went to a birthday party that was like 2 or 3 miles from my house. A buddy of mine was having a birthday party, and it was kind of crazy. Like, I just fell in love with it from day one. I quit every other sport that I was doing at the time. Like, I was playing baseball and soccer, kind of like any other kid, you know.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with climbing, and I just stuck with it. And thankfully, like, at my gym, there was like a lot of kind of like mentors and stuff like that kind of guided me through my youth as a climber. And then, you know, moving out here to go to college was definitely like one of the best things that I could ever do. And that's kind of like when my career switched from an amateur to like being a professional.
When you got out here?
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome, man. So you knew, like, as soon as you started?
Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, I
do.
loved it. And it was kind of like, I didn't even know in the beginning that you could even make a career out of something like rock climbing. I mean, you know, being from the East Coast, I mean, you know, I'm sure you can attest to this, but like, climbing is just not nearly as big as it is out here. So,
For sure.
So for me, it was kind of like, it was just something that I really loved doing, and I just kind of like climbed around at the gym, and it was more just like an activity that I loved. And then like over time, I realized, oh, there's competition climbing, and oh, there are professional climbers who are making careers out of this, and stuff like that. And then, you know, it was kind of right at that transition of being like 18, 19 years old, moving to Colorado was really when I started like actually becoming a professional. And in the sense of professional, I mean like getting paid to climb.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like right away that you realized that climbing was your passion?
Yeah, of course. I mean, climbing, you know, from day one until now, it's been a long road. I mean, I guess now it's been like 18 years really. Damn. And it's kind of crazy to think, like, you know, I've done a lot of activities from 10 years old to now, and climbing's kind of been the only activity that I never get bored of. Like, it's like I always want to do it, and I'm like still obsessed with it just as much as I was like from day one.
That's awesome, man. So you haven't like lost the passion or anything?
No, I mean, you know, obviously there's been waves, like, you know, everyone in whatever activity they do, you know, there'll be waves where they're really excited and less excited. But there's never been a time in my life where I've ever contemplated like giving up and not climbing anymore.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. What factors would you say have, or like would you attribute to your success as a climber? Like earlier you mentioned like the mentors at your gym.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think starting at a young age in kind of anything is, you know, definitely gonna make you excel much more so than starting a sport or activity when you're older, just because when you start something at a young age, your body kind of learns it more so than when you start something later in life. But, you know, I mean, definitely having mentors, and my dad was like a huge mentor for me. You know, I mean, as soon as he kind of found out like about competitions and outdoor climbing and stuff like that, like he wasn't a climber at all, but, you know, he was super passionate about kind of like having me like do something that I really loved. So, you know, whether it was like going climbing outside on the weekends or taking me to a competition or whatever it was, you know, it's just like kind of, I'd say he was definitely my biggest mentor and kind of the one that really helped me get to where I am today.
just because of the support that he gave you?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I mean, he was, he didn't understand like the fine details of climbing. You know, he was never able to be like a coach per se,
Yeah,
but it was more the support that he offered.
for sure. So how did you get involved with your art and filming?
Mm. So, I've always been kind of just passionate about like artistic projects, and in high school and then going into college, I was really passionate about painting, and that's what I ended up majoring in.
At
And
CU?
then at CU, yeah, exactly. And then after that, all I was doing was traveling, like 24/7. I didn't have I didn't have a home whatsoever, and I was just, on the road, living out of a suitcase. And I I kind of felt like I was lacking something in a lot of ways. I felt like I didn't have like an artistic outlet, and I was working with people like Josh Lowell at Big Up and stuff, and I was always so interested by the equipment they were using, like, working with them with video, or Tim Kemple with photo and stuff like that, and that it was kind of like, I was like, oh wow, they're like able to pursue an artistic passion, but they're traveling a lot. And so that's how I really got more into videography and photography, and kind of since then it's just kind of like spiraled into this crazy thing where it's, my other passion besides climbing.
That's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How that happened. Do you ever find yourself in a conflict between filming and climbing? Like, especially when you're traveling?
Yeah. No, I mean, all the time, I mean, it's tough to do both, because, a lot of times we'll be out and I'll really want to climb, but like I'll know, I'll be like, all right, well, I have to film this or whatever. And especially with this most recent film project that we've been working on, Uncharted Lines, it's been especially tough because we've been developing a lot of new boulders. So, we'll go out to the boulder fields and we'll all be projecting stuff, and obviously I want to do a lot of first ascents too, but at the same time I'm like having to man the camera,
Yeah.
or like direct the videographers or set up equipment and stuff like that. So it's definitely been like a big push-pull thing where it's like I want to climb, but like I also want to be behind the camera. So it's
Yeah.
definitely a tough balance, and it's one that I'm still trying to perfect.
Yeah. So you kind of have to give up some of those first ascents
Absolutely.
in order to capture the
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been hard to kind of do that transition, but in the long run, it's like, for me to capture one of my friends like establishing something really sick or doing something really rad is almost just as cool for me as like doing something rad, like a really cool boulder problem myself, because like that's the other side of me, that artistic side that wants to like capture what's
Yeah.
going on and show the world like how I perceive climbing.
For sure. What's the biggest goal that you have for your career?
Gosh, that's a hard question. It's a good question though. It's like, I guess I could answer it in so many different ways. I mean,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, and it's kind of transitioned a lot. I mean, you could have asked me that question 6 years ago, and my answer would just be to climb every single one of the hardest boulder problems in the world, and that still holds true.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, that's what's important to me. I love pushing myself, and that's what I love about climbing, is that 1v15, if you do one V15, it doesn't mean you're going to do the next V15, because it's going to be different in style, and every climb is so unique and so different that even like a V4 or V5, it might give me trouble where another person finds it really easy. So I mean, and yeah, so I mean, yes, climbing really hard things still holds true, but I mean, I guess I really want to leave a mark in climbing history, in the sense of like, I mean, you think of Chris Sharma, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
what has Chris Sharma done? Chris Sharma has established some of the most iconic climbs of our generation. you know. And it's like, and that's why Chris Sharma is where he is today, because he wasn't just like, oh, you know, I want to go travel all over the world and just go repeat some 515s and some V15s. Chris Sharma was like, I want to establish that like upper echelon of climbing and like show the world that like we can progress climbing to that next level. So, you know, I mean, I guess just kind of following in his footsteps, like establishing new areas, trying to establish the hardest climbs that I can possibly do, and, you know, in terms of photography and videography, like share my artistic passion with the climbing community, and hopefully with a broader community, seeing that climbing's getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So kind of just push your limits and try to leave your mark.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I think that's kind of what all professional climbers are trying to do in some sense, whether it's, you know, someone saying they want to do the most hard climbs in the world or whatever it is. But I kind of feel like my passion has shifted more towards that development kind of side of things, just because I love doing first ascents, and I love like the unknown, because, you know, it's so easy to just say, okay, I'm going to go to Waco for 2 weeks. You know what you're getting into. It's like, I'm going to go to Waco. If I go train in the gym on steep climbs, on crimps, like I will succeed in Waco.
Yeah.
There's no like question to what's going to like occur, you know, whereas like this establishment process, it's like, you don't know, you know, no one's done this before, and no one's like maybe gone to this area or climbed to this point in this climb before. And I don't know, I think that's where I'm most motivated, and when I'm trying my hardest, you know, that's where I feel like I'm trying my hardest.
And do you feel that like trying to establish these new climbs, that kind of plays to your creative outlet?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I think establishing a new climb is an extremely creative process, because again, you know, I mean, just going kind of back to that Waco thing, it's like, you know, you can search on YouTube for a climb in Waco, and you can watch 50 people do it. You'll know exactly what the beta is going to be, and then all you have to do is basically just execute what someone has already done.
For sure.
You know, there's no creative side to that. It's like let's just take what's, you know, okay, this person's my height, this person climbs like me, okay, I'm going to do it exactly like them. You know, whereas with this putting up first ascents and stuff like that, you know, there's no chalk on the wall. You know, I mean, you have to decide before you even start climbing on something if it's physically possible. And without having someone climbed it before, like, that's a question that only you can answer. And hopefully it is, you know, I mean, when you put time and energy into something and you don't end up doing it, it's like, you know, it's definitely kind of heartbreaking in some senses. But, you know, I mean, you know, kind of going back to that creative thing is like, it's taking a piece of clay, you know, and creating a sculpture out of it, because, you know, you can climb a first ascent any way that you see fit, and it's, you know, it's a lack of creativity if you don't necessarily see the way to do it, because someone in the future might see something different that you didn't see, and then they're able to create that first ascent because, you know, it just, your eyes and your vision wasn't there to see it at that point in time.
I never really seen it that way, but I feel like that's really true, because I feel like all the like visionaries of the sport were like pretty creative people who saw the opportunity to push themselves on like the harder climbs.
Absolutely. And, you know, I mean, it's like, it's kind of crazy. I mean, because, like, you know, I mean, if you've climbed for a year or whatever, like, you know, you could go up to a 5.8 or you could go up to a V0, and it's obvious, you know, there's no, like, you know, anybody could just see the line. But then when you start getting into harder things, that's when, you know, seeing a sequence and seeing a line really starts to come down to experience, because a lot of people that haven't been climbing for that long, you know, they might see a boulder field or they might see a boulder and just be like, nope, that's impossible. But then someone that, like, you know, has done a lot of first ascents and has visualized that can kind of see it differently. You know, I mean, maybe they'll see like a knee bar that, like, someone that hasn't done a lot of knee bars will see, and then all of a sudden, like, this blank sequence all of a sudden becomes possible.
Yeah, like opening up the new horizons.
Mm-hmm.
So describe to me what your dream climb is like, and have you found it yet?
Dream climb. I mean, I've definitely done some boulder problems that were, 5-star or 10-star, however many stars you want to call it, lines. But, no, and I don't think it would be good if you found that perfect line. I think you'd almost feel like, well, what's the point in continuing the search? And so I guess to say I have not found the perfect line. And I think for me, if I am going to ever find the perfect line, it would be it'd be pretty steep, and it'd be crimpy, and it'd be like big moves and small feet and really technical, and probably like pretty tall, but with a good landing. It's got to have a perfect landing, so like when you're climbing on it, it's kind of like you're not thinking about anything but the climbing. And
so not like a super high ball.
No. Maybe just like 16 feet or something like that, but like nothing in the way, kind of like just like maybe the rest of the boulder is completely blank, and then it's just like this one single line feature that kind of comes out it. And preferably sandstone, but I'll take it on a different type of rock if it shows up.
Maybe some granite. So if you could just tell me, like, how does being a sponsor athlete actually work? Like, how do you get paid, and what kind of obligations do you have to meet?
So I mean, I guess it kind of varies. Each of my sponsors require different things out of me, whether it's producing specific amounts of media or just climbing really hard or whatever. So kind of on that base layer, to get sponsored is you have to be a persona in the climbing community. You have to be recognized, and nowadays being recognized is it's very simple. It's like, well, how many followers do you have on Instagram or whatever? And that's kind of like the base layer of it all. But at the same time, it's also very important about how well you're respected in the climbing community, and how long you've been in the community. Because like a lot of kids will come up and they've been climbing for 3 or 4 years, and all of a sudden they do something difficult and they just expect sponsorship. But sponsors want to see like longevity. They don't want to see, oh yeah, you've done some hard climbs, but like, what's the future going to look like for you? Like, are you going to stay in this sport? And so I don't know. For me, my day-to-day is like, I train to be the best climber that I can possibly be. I try to do as many hard boulders as I can, which is good for me because that's really what I want to do, and good for my sponsors because it's kind of getting my name out there. And then, producing media, whether it's filming or working with other photographers and videographers, trying to show the products that I use in a good light. If I climb something hard in a pair of Evolve shoes, then like, there's a lot of people that are going to see that and be like, oh wow, like that got sent in Evolve shoes, like that that means that's a good shoe. And it really, like I said, it really varies because like I climb for Prana, right? So I could climb V15 in a t-shirt from Walmart. Like that doesn't affect, like, me wearing a Prana shirt doesn't affect me, like, my ability in climbing. But I think that my like-mindedness with the company, whether it's how I appreciate the environment and my surroundings and stuff like that, and how I try to be a good ambassador for the sport of climbing is what's important to Prana, and kind of like the values that they are exemplifying as a company.
So like each sponsor expects something different, or?
Absolutely. It's all about kind of figuring out how you fit into each kind of niche of a company,
Yeah.
and kind of working with that company to excel and to push their brand both for you and for them.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully that kind of
Yeah, that answered my question.
It's a tough question to answer, really.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No. Your questions have been good.
Do you feel an added pressure to succeed from being a sponsored athlete?
Absolutely. I mean, just in general, I'm a competitive person. I mean, even before I was sponsored, I wanted to be the best person at my gym, and then I started getting sponsored, and then I wanted to be the best climber in America, and then I wanted to be the best climber in the world. It's like, maybe on some boulder problem or route or whatever, maybe I am, but in the long run, it's kind of like, there's always going to be someone that you're going to be striving to like be better than at something, whether it's a style or whatever it may be. And I don't know. Yeah.
And do you think it's good to have those people around?
Yeah, no, I do because if there was no competition, it's kind of like, well, I don't think the sport would be seeing the like. I don't think the sport would be seeing the just like the extensive like array of how many hard climbs are being put up around the world, and how many hard climbs are being repeated, because everyone's just trying to like get an edge up on another person. And it's like, it's not like I'm directly competing against Daniel or Jimmy or Sharma or whatever, but like, we're all kind of competing against each other because we all want to do like the hardest, best things. And I think now that there's like so many people that are like really climbing that level, it's just like that extra competitive nature of like, well, what's next? What are we going to get into next?
And that's really pushing the sport to the next level.
Absolutely. I mean, like I thought, like Chris with like that Seco block, the deep water soloing was like so rad. I mean, that was so new age when he started doing that. Nowadays, like people are kind of like traveling all over the world trying to find deep water soloing wherever they go, and that's so cool because up until then, I mean, there was maybe like a handful of people that were doing it. And nowadays, I mean, there's everyone wants to go try deep water soloing because it's awesome, and it's a lot of fun. And now we have, we had just like trad climbing. That was kind of like where it started. And then it was like, all right, well, now we've got sport climbing, and now we have bouldering, and now we have deep water soloing. And it's like, maybe there'll be another form of climbing in the future. And it's pretty cool, like, to see that progression. And, to think like at one point 510 was like thought of as like the most difficult grade. I mean, 510, the climbing company, was created off of that mentality that 510 is the most difficult climbing grade in the world. And nowadays, someone could go to the gym for the very first time in their entire life and they could climb a 510. Or someone could go outside for the very first time and climb a 510. And it's like, it's not trivial, but in the whole scheme of things, it's a very like low beginner grade. And to think like, to me, 515 and V15 feels like heinous, and it's like the hardest thing ever. But like, that's what they were thought about 510, and it's like, what, 20 years from now, like V15 is probably just going to be like, oh, whatever. Now we're doing V19 or V20 or whatever it is, and it's like
something crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's all about perception. If you don't imagine that it's possible, then it's not possible. And once people start to realize that like this is possible, then it's like, then that's when you can really kind of like step forth and do more. And that's what Chris Sharma did. And that's why he is the most iconic person in rock climbing, because he didn't live by those boundaries of 14D or V14 or whatever. He went, and if it felt feasible, like, he tried it until he did it. And that's what was like that stepping stone of like, wow, that's the mark that Chris Sharma left for the world.
So what you can kind of take from that is never let what other people perceive as a limit be your limit.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything's, it's just a number, and it's like, it's so hard to imagine like a V20. Like I can't even physically imagine that. But there will be someone that will come that like, will have that vision that Sharma had.
Mm-hmm.
That like we'll be able to imagine further than what we're like perceiving right now.
That'll be a crazy day.
I know. It's crazy to think about.
So describe just what a typical day for you is like.
Typical day for me is it's I kind of break my days up into like either a rest day, which is just kind of like do work that I have been neglecting because I've been climbing a lot. It's like talking with sponsors, working on video projects, just like recovering and stuff like that. Or it's like an indoor day, and that indoor days are training because I just, I'm a rock climber. I don't think of myself as an indoor climber.
Yeah.
And I think they are two very different facets of our sport. And so when I go to the gym, I'm not like thinking about like, oh, like I need to train for a competition, or like I'm trying to get stronger for gym climbing or whatever it may be. So like I'm purely training just so that like I can climb harder when I go outside. So I do spend the majority of my time climbing outside, and a day for me climbing outside is more like I wake up, breakfast, usually leave around like 9 in the morning, drive out there, like try and really climb most of the day. Usually I'll pick a project, maybe 2 things, but mostly I'll just think of like one thing that I really want to try that day. And like I'll have a mindset in my mind of like, okay, well, this is like the first or second day I'm trying something, so like I'm just like working it, so my goal would be for those types of days, like, okay, I need to do all the moves, I need to break it down into like the sections. Hopefully I can do it in like 2 overlapping sections, and then kind of set myself up for success like the next time I come. And then if it's a day where I'm trying to do something, I'll probably be pretty nervous because I'm like thinking about it and like visualizing it the days before. And then it's more like I get out there and I warm up, and if I do it like first or second try, yeah, I might go try something else. But sometimes it's just like, oh, I did it first or second try, and that's like kind of the end of the day. It's like I'll have like driven and hiked for like 5 or 6 hours and climbed for maybe 45 seconds if I do it first try, and then that's like kind of it. And it's kind of crazy to think about, but it's it takes so much like energy to like kind of climb something at your limit that even if you do it first try, your body's just kind of like it's like giving itself everything it could, and you kind of like almost can't climb anymore after that.
Yeah, you have like that huge rush of adrenaline or serotonin,
and then it's just kind of like, and now you just feel like wasted. You're just like, oh, I'm just wrecked.
I definitely know the feeling after a long day of climbing. So what are the pros and cons of the climbing lifestyle?
I mean, the pros being, the major pro is that I can put 100% attention into climbing. I have a lot of friends who, they've got day jobs and then they're training after work and stuff like that. And, I'm always so impressed with how well they're able to climb with how much else they have to do in their daily lives. And for me, it's like, I just feel so blessed that like I don't have to think about anything but climbing. I train for climbing outside, and I climb outside. Like that's really kind of all I do. And to me, like I can't even imagine a better job in the world. The cons, I'd say the cons are, you're a professional athlete, so your career is kind of short-lived in a lot of senses, where like a lot of people will start a career in their mid-20s when they get out of college, and by 35 they're getting raises and everything like that, and they're kind of working towards like becoming a successful career-oriented person, whereas kind of with climbing you're like kind of reaching this peak, and then all of a sudden you're kind of like digressing, and then all of a sudden you're kind of almost out of a job in a lot of senses. So it's stressful in that regard, because it's a very temporal thing. There's no like future security.
Yeah.
Is I guess maybe the best way to describe it. I wouldn't give up what I do any day of my life, but at the same time, like, it's like I could get a horrible injury and it's over, or, all of a sudden I'm like getting older and it's like, well, now the kids that were like 10 and 11 when I was in my the highest point of my career are now the ones that are getting paid because they're the ones that are in the limelight. So, it's short-lived. So I guess that's kind of definitely the downside of just being a professional athlete in really any career, especially climbing, because, we don't make the money that like a professional baseball player or a professional football player makes, one of those guys, they retire and
millionaires.
They don't have to work another day in their life,
Yeah.
It's kind of like they're multimillionaires and they retire and all's well. Whereas with climbing, we make decent salaries, but we're not, by the time we're finished being professional climbers, we're not going to just be able to retire and just do nothing the rest of our lives.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way. It's pretty interesting. All right, so I'm pretty interested. Tell me about Uncharted Lines and how the whole idea for that came about.
So a couple years ago, I really started becoming obsessed with finding new areas and doing first descents, and kind of at the time, it was kind of like a weird point in my professional climbing career, because until that point, all I was really doing was just traveling the world, trying to like knock off like V14, V15, like stuff that had been established before me, and that's kind of like what my sponsors had grown to expect from me. It was like, oh, Paul's getting in a lot of media. He's doing all the hardest climbs. Like, he's one of the best climbers in the world. And for me, like it kind of like that, the thrill of that wasn't necessarily as exciting as it had been, and I kind of was like, well, these guys, they had to kind of like take that risk, like Sharma and Fred Nicole and everything like that, and they had to kind of like risk all that to go and establish climbs, because for them, like, without the climbs that I was doing, there would have been no climbs, and I was like, well, I really want to start establishing climbs, and when that occurred, like, my sponsors kind of like, they were like, what are you doing, and in a lot of ways it kind of scared me, because like they really weren't happy with what I was doing, because like, to go and climb an established V14 or V15, like, you're kind of just knocking them off.
Yeah.
You're doing one, you're doing another, and it's this constant attention that you're getting, whereas, for me, I left like Rocklands, and like, I was trying to establish my own area, so it was like, building trails, like wrapping into climbs, and like I was spending a lot of days just like cleaning things and getting them ready to be climbed, and maybe it wasn't V14 or something like that, maybe it was V12 or V11, and like that wasn't making a media attention, and that wasn't getting seen by the world, and all of a sudden my sponsor was like, what are you doing, and it was, I kind of had this point where it was like really scary, because I didn't know if I was going to be able to be a professional climber anymore, because like they were just kind of looking at me like empty-handed, like, well, what are you doing with your career now? Like, why aren't you doing what you were doing before? And in the long run, thankfully, it kind of like panned out and it worked out. But through all of that, I started to think to myself, I was like, people like Fred Nicole, like they're the ones that we're able to, they are the ones that have allowed us to do what we do today, and go to Waco and go to Rocklands and stuff like that, and climb these amazing boulders. And I kind of wanted to glorify that process, because people don't understand what goes into it. You go to Waco and you go climb some boulders, and you could ask 90% of the people there. You could go up to them and be like, do you know who established this? And they'd be like, no, I have no idea. And you'd be like, do you know who Fred Nicole is? And they'd be like, no, I have no idea.
That's
and it's
crazy.
like, and it's crazy. And like, and I was like, it's like, I feel like that this like process that we're doing is like, it's rad and it's really cool, and like I said, I wanted to glorify it, and I wanted people to see like there is more out there than just these like areas. Like, you know, I mean, it's like, okay, what 5 favorite places in America? It's like Joes Valley, Bishop, Waco, Rocky Mountain National Park. It's like, yeah, well, okay, but like, but there's so much more.
Yeah, we have a whole world.
We have a whole world that like that we need to discover, and the like, yeah, I mean, the basis for Uncharted Lines was like, I don't want to show any of that. Like, you know, how many times have we seen a video from Waco or Rocklands or something like that? It's like, I've seen XYZ climb get done 50 times on video now. It's just not exciting anymore. And so with Uncharted Lines, I just wanted to get as far from that as I possibly could.
Like a change of scenery almost?
Yeah, exactly. A change of scenery from the typical climbing film, just typical climber. And, you know, I mean, there's a bunch of us that are very like-minded in that sense, and you know, a lot of the professional climbers aren't necessarily like, they don't want to film or whatever, but I wanted to kind of, you know, show that this is what we do, you know, this is what we're all about. So we kind of chose a bunch of areas all over the world that no one has ever heard of, you know, I mean, these are brand new areas.
Yeah.
And we took the past year and a half and we explored all over the world, and every single climb in the film is a first ascent, you know, in a new area. It's not like we're squeezing something in, like in an established area. Like, each one of these zones is brand new. Each one of the climbs is brand new, and like, you know, people are going to be amazed that like some of the lines that we did for the film are better than like anything you can find out there. You know, as good or better.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, off the beaten path kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I mean, it's definitely been a process to film it. And, you know, I mean, there's been times where I've just wanted to give up because, you know, it's difficult to make a film. And it's especially difficult, like, to make a film and to try and do, like, a lot of, like, climbing yourself. But it's kind of like finally reaching that point where it's almost done, and you know, it's getting a lot of traction. People are like really excited about the film, and a lot of people are like coming up to me and asking me about it, and it's like, you know, it's like, I'm happy that I made it now, because it feels like it was for a reason, you know. And I think a lot of people are going to start thinking, hopefully a lot of people will start thinking differently, you know. I mean, not being like so dead set on where they want to go, you know. I mean, not like, I'm not saying like, you know, and not that everyone has the opportunity to like go and just like go to Russia and try and find a climbing area, but like, you know, I mean, there's new areas being found in Colorado all the time. I mean, yesterday I did one of like the coolest climbs I've ever done in my life. And it was someone that found this bouldering area like a year ago and established maybe the best boulder problem in Colorado. And, you know, I mean, like, we've all been climbing here for decades.
Yeah.
And it was just sitting there, you know, and so, yeah. So, I mean, that's what I want to, you know, I just want to promote that mentality of like, there's more, you know, go look for it. And like, you know, maybe you will find something that like is so sick that like is going to be like one of the best lines in the world.
So kind of try to change people's mindset from just going out to like the classic areas and repeating stuff, from like exploring whenever they can and finding new climbs.
Absolutely, you know, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with going to established areas, and I'll continue to go to established areas, but you know, that's not the end all be all. Like, you know, it's like there's more out there, and hopefully more people will take that approach and try and go find stuff.
All right, we're kind of running out of time, but what's the biggest lesson that you think climbing has taught you?
Biggest lesson. I mean, I guess just really it's just all about not giving up, you know. I mean, if you want something, you know, it might not come easy, but you know, I mean, as long as you just keep at it, like, hopefully in the long run, like, you'll see success.
For sure. All right, so do you have any final thoughts or advice for people listening?
I mean, I guess the only thing I think that would be really worthwhile to say is, like, a lot of people, they ask me, like, hey, how do I get strong? Like, how do I get strong fast or whatever? And I don't think, I think climbing is a very technical sport that requires a lot of body awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, I've seen people kind of start climbing and get strong quickly, but they're going to be lopsided in their abilities. Maybe they won't have the technique or whatever it is. And I think what's important is kind of just like taking the journey. It's not, there's no like recipe, there's no like, if I start at point A, like, how do I get to point Z? Everybody's going to take a different path, and everybody has a unique body. We're different heights, we're different weights, we have different arm spans, we have different leg lengths, different shoe sizes, like everything, all of that matters in climbing, and it all matters, like, how our bodies work on the wall. So, I think, I guess just in terms of advice, I would just say, pay attention to your body and how it moves on the wall, because once you start to become in tune with how your body works and moves on the wall, that's when you're really going to start to see gains and successes in your climbing.
Mm-hmm. So just realize that everyone's different and focus on your own journey.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just because you climb something one way doesn't mean, like, I have to force my body into climbing it the exact same way.
Yeah, you can always find different beta or different ways to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, thanks for the interview, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't wait to see Uncharted Lines.
Yeah, thanks.